Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Influential You podcast. I'm John Patterson, co-founder and CEO of Influential You, and your co-host for this weekly podcast. At Influential You, we teach you how to take charge of your career and amplify your professional influence. Since 2009, we've helped thousands of business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs become more rewarded, more influential, and more you. Now, today, we're speaking with Tim Nicklas, whose story began with some early losses he worked to overcome as an intrapreneur within a major children's hospital. And like many of us at work, Tim faced personalities he failed to influence or struggled to understand. All of us need buy-in from others at work. Tim's remedy? He acknowledged his cognitive bias to think that other people share his worldview and then found true value in diverse personalities. Having first participated in our programs in 2011, my gosh, that's a long time ago. He still holds his role at the hospital, teaches now new fathers how to be new dads, and has recently joined the faculty at Influential You. And so with that, Tim Nicklas, it's great to have you join us here at the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. It's a pleasure.
Tim, tell us a little bit about your, some of your early struggles. As I know, I read in your notes, you were dealing with getting some buy-in early on and run into some problems with some personalities. What were you dealing with?
I think I was just afraid that people didn't like my ideas. I was in this headspace of let's chase innovation. Let's do things that are new and exciting and really buck the system, not really be embracing the past. And when I proposed some of these ideas, I got some negative feedback, and I just didn't have the thick skin to take that feedback. And I think I was a inventor type personality is what I thought at the time. And I had new ideas, and anyone that wasn't into possibilities and creating new things was, well, frankly, wrong.
I love that you say that. I'm so reminded of something because I kind of grew up. I'll call it like I grew up sort of imagining all kinds of possibilities and what could be, and I think many of us grew up with the thought that we need to have a positive attitude, we need to see the glasses half full and all of that kind of stuff. I also found out that I might be wrong about that. Did you grow up? Were there a bunch of people around you saying, you should be more positive, or was that just natural for you?
I think it was just natural for me, but I was kind of pigeonholed into a career path. I was told that I was good at science and math at an early age. So I thought, I'm going to pursue engineering and something math related. And a lot of the career opportunities that I thought were presented to me didn't resonate with an inventor, weren't about new ideas. It was very technical and detail oriented. Yeah. And maybe I just wasn't exposed to as much of the design side and the artistic side. I don't think I can blame anyone else. I gravitated to it for some reason, but it just wasn't a good fit when I got out into the real world and tried doing this stuff on my own.
So in your work, I know that you began work. You have to describe it to me.
Sure. Yeah.
Tell me about what you saw that you might create within the hospital, and because that's some pretty impressive stuff that you went about to create, and eventually did do some good work in that area. What were you attempting to have people accept? What was the new idea?
That everyone has new ideas, and there are infinite possibilities out there, and we should be putting a lot of resources into pursuing them. Even if the bottom line, it didn't impact the bottom line immediately, that there are, potential ideas for new products and services that could help our patients that we should be pursuing. And it had
So
been
you
going on
went
around
about,
the country. Yeah.
sorry?
And there were examples of it arising around the country.
And did you have a particular kind of, it had something to do with, I'm so sorry, but I
Yeah,
know
no
it. And
problem.
if I say what it is and I describe it, I'm going to sound so stupid, but I know you were working with sort of mobility and children or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's always using digital technology, basically movement analysis. So a department where I've worked in the past is you have little reflective markers on the human body, and then you create an avatar of that person as they walk. And then we use that to make clinical decisions on how to improve their walking ability. And it can result in uh, transferring tendons, lengthening muscles, cutting bones, and rotating them. That's the clinical department where I worked. But I saw opportunities to use some of the new sensors that were coming from video gaming and different, the measuring devices that are embedded in your iPhone to help improve movement and engage kids in movement. So I was really looking for an avenue to bring some of my ideas to fruition, and at the same time create a resource for others to bring their ideas into fruition.
Gotcha. All right, gotcha. So let's think about this from the perspective of anybody in an organization that needs to get buy-in from another person. Now, if you're like me, and this is how it is for me, I work in an organization, and sometimes I need to get buy-in from somebody that's rather critical. Sometimes I need to get buy-in from someone who just wants to know, what do you want me to do? Or is afraid that the thing that I'm going to come up with is now going to make a whole bunch of new things for them to do. So we all need to get buy-in. And for you, you were dealing with getting buy-in from whom exactly? And you don't have to say their name, but was there a particular role in the company or a particular kind of personality, or was it a group of people?
It was a group of people. I would say that different personalities, judge personalities, and producer personalities. I'm going to level with you, John. I was naive, and I was just sort of stuck in my little paradigm of inventor land or somewhere high-sided on the transaction cycle. And I don't think I had, we talk about how you gain confidence through competence. And I did not have the competence. I just had some ideas that I thought were so amazing and that I wanted to bring to fruition. And I was able to, really convince some people that these were great ideas. And I didn't present the evidence, but they weren't the transactional personalities that require evidence. They saw a possibility from all my possibilities. And then when I worked around the transaction cycle, I was not selling the idea properly. I did get some support. So what I did, instead of facing the tough feedback from judges or some of the producers, I just eliminated them from the transaction cycle. So you can ask me how that worked out.
Yeah, exactly. How did that work out?
It was terrible. There was no one there to tell me that my ideas were, with the historical record of why this didn't work. And in the past, which I now embrace wholeheartedly. I love to have judges part of the transaction cycle. But at the time, I really did a gap analysis after I'd tried some things and had some failures. And that's right around the time I took fundamentals of transaction and really started to understand the whole architecture of what a transaction is supposed to look like, how it is for every type of exchange with humans. And I was like, I had some vague sense of that part of the transaction cycle, but I just ignored it because I couldn't take the tough feedback, and I crashed and burned. I was selling things that I couldn't deliver on. I didn't even have the producers in place. I thought that I could do it all. I'm the inventor. I'll be the performer and sell it. And I kind of had that part pretty well handled, but then it's like coming up with deliverables, and I couldn't get them done.
Huh. So you've now joined our faculty, and now a lot about the different personalities. You talk a little bit about your own cognitive bias towards thinking everybody should think like you do. What did you discover about that?
Yeah. Wow. I call it the ether, that backside of the transaction cycle that I was not paying attention to from where the producer hands it off to the judge and makes the assertions and assessments. But I realized that it takes a team, but that different personalities should be in certain parts of the transaction cycle. The one that I came across and had evidence time and time again is if you're going to plan these things, you need the producers in the room. You have to include them. I know we say that all the time, but it can't be said enough, because they're the ones that are going to be doing the work on the factory floor. And if you're struggling with that because you don't have the producers in place, then you're really in trouble. So I really thought that I was supposed to be doing it all and doing the producer work. And it wasn't happening. I had some support and some help, but I wasn't out there transacting for the help that I needed to build out the full transaction and have all the different personalities in place, the whole team in place.
Yeah.
And even when I learned it, I still didn't get it. It took me years to get it, because I've been studying with you guys now that it's we and I'm part of the team. I went into developing a tech startup to work on similar technologies. And I even knew what I was doing wrong going into it, but there was something there that I just could not ask for the help or transact for the help that was needed. It was like, okay, no, we have to do this all ourselves. I had a business partner, and let's do this all ourselves. And then we'll have some, funding, and then we'll bring on the team. And I don't think that's the right order. Some people can do it, and that's amazing, but it was not working for me.
And do you think this is mostly you as an inventor personality just dealing with the things an inventor personality normally deals with? Or is this a lot of just your own personal journey? Were you, struggling with anything else about yourself? Did you think you were somehow flawed? What were you dealing with about all that?
Boy, that's a loaded question. I would say everything across the board. Part of it's I have two cognitive biases, that I'm unique and different than everyone else. And that the other one is that at the same time, I still think that everyone thinks the same way that I do. And if they don't, that they're wrong. So somehow I create this paradox where I'm stuck in both camps. I would say that I had been focusing in research and very technical work, very producer engineering type work. And it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. Creating new things and working with people and building collaborations and possibilities and getting people excited about what we could build. And with all the technology that's coming down, that it's being developed in medical technology, it was just like, we should be doing something amazing. So it was I was certainly driven to create something new and something great, but I just wasn't facing my own naivete and / conceit. Like, I thought I should be able to do this all, yet there was some underlying fear that, you hear it all the time, imposter syndrome. It's now cliche. You hear it in the media so much, but sometimes imposter syndrome is valid because you haven't developed the competence to have the confidence. So I actually went back and took a bunch of MBA classes, got a certificate in biotechnology and entrepreneurship as a result of taking fundamentals of transaction. I went back to school for probably 3 years to build my competence to be able to develop some of these ideas. And that led into the startup. But I think my business partner and I worked on that for several years using movement-controlled video gaming to engage kids in movement games where multiple kids with different levels of ability could all play. It was, it seemed altruistic. It seemed great. But I didn't have that good sense of the probability that something was going to fail. In my mind, I had it was the worst combination. It was inventor mind, where I see the certainty, this is just how the future is going to be. And then there was a dash of magical thinking in there, because I would have these strings of success. I'm like, see, this is destined to happen. And then something would come and punch me in the jaw, and I'd be like, wait, no, that's not supposed to happen. What's going on? And it left me with a lack of, I would say, resiliency. And I don't know what it was exactly, but
right.
It was like destiny versus, looking for signs instead of just buckling down and doing the work in action. So,
all right. So you've now studied a lot. It sounds like you've had some real insights into yourself and what makes you tick and why you are
Sure.
the
Yeah.
way you are, and your own personality and transactional behavior. And I know from having worked with you, you know quite a bit now about your own personality. You learned a lot about working with the other personalities and how to address transactions with those others. Now, you already mentioned that with some of the judges, you recognize I think their value in the transaction. I know that that's a big deal for you. You now recognize, rather than poo-pooing all your good ideas, they're now really valuable in the transaction. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing. I consider myself a PR agent for judges. They get a bad rap because, you know, they're skeptical and critical and confrontational, but I didn't realize how much they love people and how much they just care so much about protecting the business and your security and their security and being the guardian of the bottom line, that I had them completely wrong. And I love
And
to
how
learn the what's
did you
that?
did you think of them as like, naysayers? What did you
Oh
think
yeah,
about them?
absolutely. Well, not to be melodramatic, but whenever I had proposed this idea originally to someone that identifies as a judge, and they basically said, "Well, if you can come up with the funding and have a detailed plan, and you can prove to me that it works, then maybe we'll consider it." I was like, "That's not how innovation works." And I just had this vision of him just crushing my soul, or like in the Aztecs would reach in and cut your heart out and lay it out, and watching it become emaciated in the sun. That was the visual I had, instead
Yeah.
of just someone who cared for me and cared for what our mission was, just doing the right thing. So now I don't take a step without getting judge input. It's critical.
And I think it'd be useful to talk about that for a second, because we can say, well, I'm an inventor, I'm an idea person, and, they're the skeptics, so they're going to poo-poo things and make sure that it's, a viable idea. If we talk to people now about working with the judge, so as you know, we talk about the inventor and the judge working together in the planning area of things.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy most about now working with the judge, now that you're friends with them?
Yeah. Any judge that I've worked with, first, they're just damn smart. They know what's happened in the past, and they know the standards and assessments. Like, this is how things are. This is how they've been. This is what we've tried. This is why they didn't work in the past. And that is a great launch pad to develop new ideas. I used to reject this whole idea that there are no new ideas. I'm like, why do we have to look to the past? Let's create newly and develop these concepts. But without first, having the responsibility to inventory your resources and know what you have to work with, you can do brainstorming sessions where you can release the constraints of resources for a while and get people's juices flowing. You don't really need to do that with inventors, but if you have some producers and maybe judges in the room, maybe the judges shouldn't be in the brainstorming session, but sometimes it's appropriate. You have to get them freed up cognitively to come up with a lot of new ideas, because that's not their sweet spot. But aside from that, you need to have that inventory of resources and really know what you have to work with before you go ahead and assess ideas and commit to some of those ideas moving forward. So
Yeah.
it's just valuable. And I find that a lot of the judges I've worked with, they just have really great stories about the past too, and great senses of humor. So I just find it, in the past, I thought because they're deconstructivists by nature that they're just picking everything apart, but that's what they're supposed to do.
So let's think about some of our listeners who work in large organizations, and they want to, they're intrapreneurial. They would
Mm-hmm.
like to approach their company with some new ideas or new strategies. Maybe they think that if we did it this way or if we did it that way, then it would be better. Or maybe there are people that would like to offer the company, them in some new role. How would you advise people, given what you now know about personality, how would you advise people to approach that situation, given what you now know about personality?
Yeah, you have to keep every personality in mind, and you have to identify, depending on the size of the organization. If it's a small company, you might only be working with a couple of people. You might not have all the personalities represented. But when you're dealing with a judge, you want evidence. And when you're working with inventors, you want to present it in such a way that perhaps they think it's their idea. I think, but at the bottom, the starting point is to make sure that you're doing your job and you're doing it well and you're providing value. And I think it's very beneficial to educate whoever it is you're working with or selling this idea to on the transaction cycle or transactional personalities. And if it's not our work, there's different versions that they might be able to use to just say, look, this is how I think, this is how you think, but this is where my real value of help is, and be able to demonstrate what your strength and your value of help is before moving forward. And of course, you want to be clear on your aims and what the aims of the organization and those individuals are. It always comes down to aims. Step one.
Yeah, absolutely. Step one. All right. Well, is there anything that we should know about life now for you?
Yeah. I'm a family man. I've got 2 little girls, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old daughter, and I've been married. It'll be 10 years now. So I actually started doing this work before I got married. It seems hard to believe. So my wife and I are celebrating our 10th anniversary. And a couple of years ago, studying with you and with Kirkland, I was talking to Kirkland. I'm like, how do I really master this work? I had reached out to him after the startup kind of crashed and burned. I don't even know if crashed and burn is the word. It never quite got off the ground, so it couldn't have that descent to crash and burn. I'm like, you know what? I know this stuff, but I'm not applying it. I need to immerse myself in the environment. And so I took some higher level courses, and they've been fantastic. And I said, well, how do I really learn this stuff? And he goes, well, come work with us. And it had never occurred to me. Like, that wasn't even a possibility on my radar. And he proposed some different options. And so learning to teach and present in workshops, support clients as a client manager, all those different things have, I get the opportunity to work with you and with Kirkland and Josh and Liz and Marnie, just that list, Drew, Daryl, I don't want to leave anyone out, but it's just that environment where Influential You practices what it preaches. And there's a way to transact through anything. And even just in the past few weeks, I've really come to grips with some things that I have not been transacting powerfully. As I get different areas handled, I'm like, well, that's an exchange with human beings, and I have an aim in that condition of life. I have access to world-class medical help, and I want to get in better shape and, be more flexible, stronger, faster. Why am I not transacting for help with all these experts that I know? The help is out there, and as I present myself as valuable help to others, it's just, I would say one thing, not to ramble on here, but I just took myself too damn seriously, and I was afraid to ask for help and admit that I didn't know how to do things. Once, and I'm not through that storm yet, I don't think, but the more I embrace it, the more things just work. Stuff doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to struggle. You can actually just transact and get the help you need, and at the same time help other people, and it works really beautifully.
Now, you recently revealed to me that you are dealing with ADHD, and that's a sort of something that you weren't really dealing with in a powerful way, and now are beginning to. Anything you want to say about that?
Sure. I thought of myself as an inventor for many years. And one day my wife pointed out, and she hasn't taken the work, but how you have a spouse and she's done some courses, just knows the work. And she goes, I think you just think you're supposed to be an inventor. I was like, oh, that hurts, because I think I'm supposed to have all these great ideas. But I realized something, that I love being with people, and I do really live in the moment. I'm not the outgoing, super gregarious performer, but I think at the end of the day, I really live in the moment. I value relationships. Whenever things become stressful, I look around, I'm like, is everyone okay? And that's a telltale sign that I might be a performer. It doesn't matter whether I'm truly in the performer camp or the inventor camp, but I would sort of grapple with, well, maybe I have ADHD. I've got all these, check off the boxes. I'm not hyper. I don't interrupt people and come across as someone who's all over the place. But on the flip side, I overcompensate because I'm just sort of thinking through things and filtering things before they come out. But then I really learned about performers, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I don't have ADHD. Maybe, being in the moment and moving on to the next thing and forgetting things and having weak follow through. Maybe I'm just a performer. So I don't know what the real answer is. I think I avoided it, but it turns out that just facing your own naivete, as Drew always says, just hunt it down. And it's so rampant with me once I identified it, just even in the past month or so, being able to transact for help and let people know where you need help. I just pretended I had everything handled. And I don't want to say that in the past tense. I'll say we pretend, whoever it is that's in this camp with me, and I'm sure this will resonate with some people, just pretend that we have everything handled. And really, it's a facade. And in some cases, and we just need to face the music and ask for some help, and people understand.
That's
and
great.
And it really, you just have to remember, I do have valuable help to extend to other people. They can help me with this, and I can help me with this, or I can help them with this. And when my wife sees this, she's gonna be like, this is what I've been saying for almost 10 years now. So sorry, honey.
Yes. Thank her for us. So
Yes.
I love that you bring it up, and it's worth just underlining for a lot of people, because when people do our programs, we know that there's a way that you might take a quiz and find out which personality that you are, just like you can take some other quizzes like, DISC or Myers-Briggs or all of the, hundreds of tests out there. One of the things that we recognize is that tests are kind of BS, because those personality tests have a kind of bias, and we'll take the test wanting it to turn out in a particular way. Or you could say that we want to see ourselves in a particular light, and therefore we'll answer the questions according to how we hope to be seen or how we'd like to think of ourselves, rather than how we are, or perhaps even how others might see us. So many people do our programs and start their journey off thinking, I'm an inventor, and then come to the realization, I'm probably not an inventor. I may be this or that, right? Or, avoiding, I don't want to be a judge. And so many people end up, really after some inquiry and some proper accurate thinking, discover that they might be a judge personality. Personally, for anybody listening, we're not so committed that you discover which one you are. What we do want is we want you to think accurately about yourself and about other people, and how to transact more and more and more and more effectively with all those differing personalities. So I love that you said that. All right. Well, one of the last things we do in the podcast, Tim, is we give people the opportunity for a little soapbox moment. So is there anything that you would like to say, anything you're passionate about or care deeply about that you want to let us know?
Yeah, it's something that I discovered. It doesn't really matter what your personality is. You'll figure that out, what your strengths and weaknesses are. I used to joke that I'm either an inventor with a confidence problem or a performer with social anxiety. And, that was 10 years ago. I realized that that's not being responsible for your identity. Now I really focus on the fact that I've got positive attributes in both camps. But it's not just the personalities. Once you understand how transactions work, even if you're an inventor or a performer, you now know that there are different moves and phases or conditions of transaction, and you have that curse of knowledge. You're now responsible for that. So if you're going out on a new endeavor and it's just you, or you don't have your team fully built, it doesn't mean that you neglect those parts of the transaction. You have to be responsible for them. Either handle them yourself, but ideally find the right people and the right team that help you build out that transaction properly. And, I would say the other sort of red flag you want to look for is, if you're an inventor and you're doing it all, don't just then hand off things completely. You have to be responsible for managing it. I think that we have this tendency to just say, okay, someone else is doing that. They're handling it. You have to make sure it comes to plan. There is maintenance, there is management involved. And it's a pitfall of many entrepreneurs. I think Gerber says it in the E-Myth that so many entrepreneurs do that. They get the help and then they kind of step away from the business, and they have to go back and kind of save it in the future. So just being responsible for the totality of the transaction cycle is going to pay off dividends.
That's great. Well, Tim, thanks so much for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us and to share your knowledge and your journey with people. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, if you'd like to know more about us, then you can go to influentialu.global and explore our courses, consulting, our conferences. We offer a 4-year curriculum for those seeking an advanced experience. However, if you're new to Influential You, we recommend you start with Thrive, self-guided training. Thrive is a self-guided program that lets you learn at your own pace. Thrive members enjoy weekly live e-coaching sessions and an ever-expanding library of exclusive video lessons with our faculty, thought leaders, and industry experts. You'll get proven proprietary tools to accurately assess your career and develop a realistic strategy to achieve your aims faster. Your membership also includes chat access to faculty, plus discounts to our transformative conferences. Sign up today and use promo code 20OFF for a 20% discount on the monthly subscription. That's coupon code 20OFF. Next week, we're going to interview Sean Gillespie. He's a successful artist who realized that sometimes his idea is not the best idea. In fact, Sean is a great example of a solopreneur who found new freedom, productivity, and big financial wins by putting together an effective team. You're not going to want to miss talking with Sean. We love him to death. He's been around with us for a long time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Each week we stream live at 2 p.m. Pacific on our website, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, so you can easily share this with others. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or any place you get your podcasts. Check out our show notes for links to connect with our guests, plus links to websites, books, or special downloads we talked about on today's episode. This podcast is made possible by the Influential You staff, members, and mentors around the world. Special thanks to our executive producer, Tyson Crandall, with contributions from Michael Teehee, Joey Anderley, Daryl Anderley, and Paul West. The Influential You podcast is produced by Influence Ecology, LLC in Ventura, California. This episode was recorded on August 10th, 2022, and the podcast theme is by Chris Standring, entitled Fast Trade Everywhere. If you haven't yet offered a rating review, I ask that you take a moment, go to iTunes or your podcast app, and let us know what you think. This helps us more than you know.